Good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning. I think we're ready to start the webinar. My name is Judy Warren, and I'm a procurement counselor here at the TGI PTAC. We do a lot of these webinars, and if you have a topic that would be of special interest to you, please let us know, because we want these sessions to be as relevant as possible to your government contracting experience. A little bit about my background. I worked for the Air Force for a long time. I worked in their accounting division. I also worked as an item manager and a logistics manager, but I spent a great deal of time as a buyer. After that, I left the Air Force, and I was a civilian, not military, but I left the Air Force to work in a small business development center at Rose State College, where I helped small businesses who were trying to sell to the government, and worked on some things like business plans and loan applications. So I had a little bit of background in understanding the needs of small businesses there. And then I've spent the last 20 some years in the PTAC system, and that stands for Procurement Technical Assistance Center. And here I help small businesses with a variety of topics, all related to federal contracting. I hope that experience will be beneficial when you have questions. So please give us a call here at TGI when you have questions about government contracting. If you're new to government contracting, you may discover that finding the folks you want to sell to is not as easy as it sounds. Today, we're going to talk about finding your potential customers and making some connections. And I'll share some tips along the way. We will begin by looking at some publicly available databases to help you identify the agencies most likely to purchase what you sell. Then we will look at helpful information found on most agency websites. And finally, we will talk about connecting with those agencies. You've probably heard that relationships are important, and they are. I prefer to use the term connections rather than relationships because the term relationship may give the wrong impression. I once knew a small business owner who thought that he couldn't make a sale to the federal agencies unless he could get the program managers on the golf course. But that is not the type of relationship we're talking about here. What you need to do is to develop a professional relationship with the buyers with the buyers at the small business professionals at those agencies that you want as customers. And you can do that by communicating honestly with them and by performing your contacts well. If you have a contract and a problem comes up, contact them immediately, and again, communicate honestly and work for solutions. I hope that today's presentation will help you focus your marketing efforts where they can produce the most significant benefit. I would also encourage you to listen to other presenters, PTAC counselors, and small business professionals for additional tips on finding your federal customers. So we're going to look at the past. The first thing we're going to look at is something called USA Spending and something called the Federal Procurement Data System. You have access to all of the sites listed here. They're free and available to the public. They're available 24/7. Some of them provide information on the past, and that's what we're looking at with USA Spending and the Federal Procurement Data System. They can help you understand what the agency has bought, who they bought it from, and how. And this can be very valuable. For example, suppose that you find all of an agency's purchases for products and services in your NAICS code were orders placed against the federal supply schedule or another contract vehicle. In that case, you know that the agency prefers using those channels. And I do believe that these two websites can be most helpful in finding that information. We're going to look at both of them momentarily. There are also websites that tell you about the present. The most comprehensive of these is SAM, the System for Award Management. Purchases expected to exceed $25,000 in value are posted to the SAM website. Agencies may post purchases expected to be below $25,000 here or to other sites. When the contract is under $25,000, it may not be posted in SAM. That is up to the agency. Different agencies have different approaches. You can find the guidance provided to buyers for publicizing purchases in FAR Part 5, Publicizing Contract Actions. For contracts expected to be between $15,000 and $25,000, they can display a notice in a public place or publicize it in any appropriate electronic means. Other ways they can disseminate information include periodic handouts listing proposed contracts, making announcements in newspapers, trade journals, or magazines, or even placing paid advertisements in newspapers or other communications media. And there are websites containing agency forecasts. Acquisition.gov has links to various agency pages, and those forecasts include anticipated requirements. Because they're anticipated requirements, they're not 100% accurate. And some agency listings are better than others. But I think it's good to be familiar with this website and use it as a launching pad to look for more information. So first, we're going to look at the past and look at usaspending.gov. You'll see the highlighted yellow area here at the top of the page on the right-hand side. These are links to the various elements within the system. There's a spending explorer, an award search, there's some profiles and some downloads and some resources. I really like using the resources. Click there and click on glossary, because there are a lot of terms here that are unfamiliar to most people when they begin working with the federal government. And sometimes we have to look them up again, even if we've worked with the government for a long time. But the most frequent thing you're going to use is the award search. In the Spending Explorer, you're going to see this page, and you can sort by budget function, by agency, or by object class. I find searching by object class to be a little cumbersome, but the others are kind of intuitive to a greater extent. The thing I think you're going to find most helpful is the award searches, because this tells you what historically the agency has done, or the government overall. It'll help you find out which agencies did it. So you have two options under award searches. There's the advanced search and the keyword search. And under the advanced search, you can hone it down very much. And on the keyword search, you start out with a more generic search. So I wanted to look at the filters. You can filter by keywords, dates, award types. You can look at a specific agency. If you know that the Veterans Administration is likely to be a good customer for you, or if you know that the Department of Agriculture is likely to be a good customer for you, you can limit your searches to those agencies. Or if you possibly are in construction and you want to be looking at contracts below the value of your current bonding limit, you can sort based on value. The two criteria that I tend to lean on a lot are the NAICS code, that's the North American Industry Classification Code that describes what your business does, and the Product Service Code, which is the government's way of classifying what they're purchasing. Some people like to limit their searches to a particular type of set-aside. If you are a HUBZone company and you feel that your competitive edge lies in HUBZone set-asides, then you might want to select that as one of your criteria to filter on. Once you get your results, I think it is very helpful to download them so that you can really examine them more closely. So you can click on the download. Whoops. Something happened to my slide. Okay, you can click on download as it shows here, and then it will save all that information for you. And when you click on download, it opens a new screen. And here I'm trying to tell you that it's easier to select award rather than transaction when it asks you which level of data you need. Once you've got that data downloaded, it's going to come in a CSV file, which you can convert to an Excel spreadsheet. Then you can create pivot tables to view the fields that are of interest to you, and you can sort and filter the data. Here I have an example where I've sorted the data so that the agency making the purchases are listed in the order of the amount of money they spent during the time period of the search. So first you ask yourself, what do you want to know? Do you want to know who buys the products and services like the ones you provide? Then you may want to search on NAICS codes and product service codes. Do you want to know what types of contracts and contract vehicles they use? Or how they classify the products and services? Or what companies might have been awarding the contracts? Once you create the pivot table, you can select the appropriate fields to give you the information you really want to know. Another website that can give you a lot of information about historical purchases is FPDS. And you can get there just by typing fpds.gov. This is a source of information for usaspending.gov. The federal employees who make the awards will enter the information into this system, and then it's pulled into usaspending.gov, where it's a little bit more user-friendly to extract the information. The reports functions that used to be in FPDS were transferred to SAM. So you may still see some reference to them, but they are no longer there. They are now in SAM. And those are big aggregate types of reports. What FPDS does that is really, really valuable is that it provides details on individual contracts. You can search by contract number, by agency, by awardee, by keywords, and get more detailed information. So this is a sample. I did a search. I typed in VA Medical Center, Tulsa. And this is what I got in return. All those blue things are links to take you to additional information. But right here, I can get the contract number, the NAICS code, the product service code, the contracting officer, and the contractor. You could also have done a search by a competitor's name or by a NAICS code. Searches here by NAICS code will give you a huge, huge number of rows. So you would have to narrow that down a bit. And you can start with searching on one thing and then narrow it down by adding another filter as you go. When you click into the view buttons on this screen, you will get something that looks like this. And you have to scroll down. I put this into 2 blocks because of the space available on the sheet. But I wanted to point out in particular that this shows you what product service code was used and what principal NAICS code was used for this contract award. And if you scroll down far enough, you will find a block that's called Description of the Requirement. Some buyers put in a very good detailed description, some not so much. But this will tell you what they were thinking when they made the award. Also, you will see that you can find out how many offers there were. So if you're looking at a recurring requirement and you want to know what kind of competition they had in the past, this will give you an idea about the competition that has been there previously. No guarantee there will only be 3 offers this time, but it's likely that there won't be 300. You can also learn about your customers by looking at the present. The single database that has the most information about what's being bought currently by the federal government is SAM. And this is the SAM website. You'll see that you have a search bar there, and there are different kinds of databases. So first of all, if you click on search, I'm going to encourage you to select the domain before you enter your search terms, because it just works better that way. You'll get better results, and I'm not sure why. There are no instructions to really tell you that that's absolutely essential, but I find it to be absolutely essential. You do need to log into SAM if you want to look at some things. Some of the documents you find on individual solicitations, and looking at interested vendors lists or following opportunities all require a login. One of the things I wanted to point out here too is that on the landing page, you can see all of the types of information that are available in this top frame. I highlighted federal hierarchy because if you know for sure that the Veterans Administration or the Navy is going to be a good customer for you, and you want to know more about their locations and their buying offices, you can click into federal hierarchy and do some searches to learn more about that agency. And that can also be helpful sometimes. But it's better to do the searches and find out who's buying your product or service if you aren't absolutely sure when you begin. These are the results of a search. This search found 4 matches. So it's saying showing 1 through 4 results. Sometimes you will get a lot of results, and then you will want to add more filters so that it gets down to something manageable. Here, I clicked on the notice listed in the first column and got the result below it. And you can see that it gives very specific information about that purchase. On the left-hand navigation panel, you can also see that there is a link for history, for award notices, classifications, and most importantly, those attachments. Some attachments are not available for viewing unless you are logged in and have a role assigned to you. If there's someone in your company that needs to access the drawings or access other documents, they need to be listed with roles in all the appropriate systems, including SAM. You can also click on follow here to get notified when there are changes to this specific announcement. So enough about the present. Let's take a peek into the future. This is an excellent site. The link to it was on the first page, and it's also here. You can download the slides from your right-hand navigation pane. But this site will tell you about the links for all the other agency forecasts. And you can see you can also get other information. If you go across there, you can look at small business, business opportunities, vendor communication plans, and agency industry liaison directories, which I think are very helpful. Sometimes they're a little out of date, but still very helpful. If you were to click on the agency procurement forecast and then go to NAVFAC, you would get the screen that is there on the right-hand side of this slide. Each one of the agencies has their own unique method of handling this, so they will not all look the same, but all of them will have something there that should be helpful for you. So while we're looking in the future, had some ideas. Visit the agency websites. In addition to looking at the forecast link, look at the agency website overall. Contact their small business office. These folks can be the most helpful people in the world. They can help you navigate their websites. They can help you understand whether or not their agency buys what you sell and how it buys it. Attend webinars. This is a good way to become familiar with the agency and with their small business staff, sometimes with their program staff. Do internet searches. Follow the agencies on social media. Now, I know you don't have a lot of time to do that, but for example, on LinkedIn, you can follow an agency, and when they post something, you'll get a notice, and you can decide if you've got time today to look into that. Attend vendor outreach meetings. I think that this is one of the most important things you can do, because these are days they set aside when they are actually asking for vendors to come in. So they're ready for you. They're ready for your questions. So here we have some do's and don'ts. First, the do's. Do ask questions. Do listen to the answers. Do listen to the questions that others ask. And always seek clarification. Sometimes it sounds like the answer said nothing, so you need to rephrase it and ask it again. The don'ts. Don't just wait for the phone to ring. The odds are it's not going to. You have to be very proactive in seeking government contracts. Don't expect government contracting to be easy. It is not. It is a process, and you have to learn the process, and you have to learn about your customers. The government isn't all one homogeneous organization. It is composed of agencies, and each agency may approach things just a touch differently, and you will need to learn about that. And don't expect immediate results. On the average, it takes 2 to 2.5 years for most companies to get their first contract after they begin marketing to the federal government. So let's look at some agency websites. One place you can go that is really helpful is the Federal Acquisition Jump Station. When you get to the Federal Acquisition Jump Station, as you can see here from the screenshot, you can click on links to all of the departments of the executive branch and to the independent agencies. There are also links to other federal sites. The main thing is you can follow these links. For example, you see here that there is one for the Air Force. You can click on any of those links and then look for selling to or contracting with or doing business with types of publications that are put out by that specific agency. Many of them will start with the same thing. You've got to register in SAM. But after that, there are some differences. Sometimes they will give you points of contact, and that's extremely valuable. You can also look on their websites for Small Business Office, OSDBU, and other types of verbiage that will indicate small businesses can call us for help. Sometimes they have a vendor communication plan, and sometimes they will list their vendor outreach days way ahead of time. So it's good to search for these kinds of words. Subcontracting directory is excellent. That may give you not only the companies, but points of contact within the companies who are doing business directly as prime contractors with that agency. Sometimes there are links here also to the acquisition forecast and or procurement forecast, as it's sometimes called. And sometimes instead of saying small business, they will say procurement assistance. And some agencies actually publish a small business guide to help you through the process of selling to their agency. So all of these are very valuable. I clicked on Department of Transportation, and this is what you get. You'll get something that applies to you and something that doesn't apply to you very frequently. You're not really looking for grants, but there is a link to the page that talks about grants. There's also a link to another set of links about contracting opportunities and a link to their small business office. Additionally, they provide a link to SAM and SBA. And if you're interested specifically in the Federal Aviation Administration, they provide a link here. If you are interested in selling the Federal Aviation Administration, I strongly recommend that you check this out because FAA is not subject to the FAR. They have similar rules, but their rules are their own, and you will want to learn those. Bottom line, every link contains information that's valuable to someone. It's good to see how the information is organized and learn the language, especially on the sites for the agencies that might be your good customers. And if you don't find the information you're seeking, your PTAC can help. And here's another page from the Department of Transportation website. This is their procurement assistance page. And I just highlighted here some of the things that are on that one page. You will look for things like this on all agency pages. They will not all be organized the same way, but frequently they will be. However, they may list them under Small Business Office or OSDBU rather than procurement assistance. But here you've got a set of links on the left-hand side to take you to various pages within their website. Under How I Can Help, they've actually got a link to the listing of their small business specialists. And that can be valuable. Even if they haven't kept it up to date with the names, the phone numbers are generally still good, even if a new person is on that job. They also have a link to their annual procurement forecast right here. And a note that they compile and publish a subcontracting directory. They also tell you about SBA's subcontracting network, Subnet. That is hit or miss because prime contractors will publish requirements that they have to fill the government contracts that they have been awarded to Subnet. They can do that for free, but they are not required to do it. So it's just an extra step for some of them. And the most of the time when I go there, I see construction subcontracts. I rarely see anything other than construction. If you have questions after visiting one of these websites, call the small business professionals for that agency or call your PTAC and we will try to help you there. The Department of Transportation actually publishes a guide for small business. Not all agencies do this, but for the ones that do, these are incredibly valuable. Sometimes they get a little bit old, but the basic information is still going to be good. If the agency posts one of these, I would recommend reading it before you try to make appointments with them, because this will give you a little bit more insight about what to ask. And here is a page out of their subcontracting directory. Not all agencies post subcontracting directories, but when they do, I think that this is incredibly good information. You see here that they are listing the vendor or contractor, their address, the NAICS code, their major products and services, and the official's name and phone number. That phone number is incredibly valuable. And this is another example. I thought we ought to look at two agencies. This is the page from the Department of Agriculture. There's a link here to USDA procurement. And you're going to see that on the left-hand navigation panel, they have business opportunities, vendor communication, and about procurement. They also have something that'll contact us. There's a lot of good links there. And on the right-hand part of the slide, you'll see that they also have their announcements and events posted here. So if they are going to have a vendor outreach day, you're likely going to see it on this type of page. And that's not true just for agriculture, but for most agencies. And this is talking about business opportunities and where would you find them? They're sending you to SAM. On their website, it still said beta.sam, but we know that it's just sam.gov now. And they like to use GSA schedules. It tells you here that GSA has programs and initiatives that provide additional support to vendor segments doing business with GSA. And it provides options for vendors by leveraging numerous methods for procuring products and services. A GSA schedule may be a solution for you. This is something you can discuss with your PTAC representative. And very often it is a good move. If you've not been in business for a couple of years yet and you don't have at least 6 good customers who could give you good references, you may not be ready for a GSA schedule yet, but keep it in mind for the future. Scrolling down that page, I also found a link for the procurement forecast, which I thought was interesting because they have several ways to get their procurement forecast. And when you got there, you also found a link to their vendor outreach events. And these links on the right-hand side are to various forecasts that they've made during the year for different types of products and services that they purchase. Their subcontracting directory, again, is excellent. This one is going to be by contract. So when the contract is large enough to require a subcontracting plan, it goes into their directory. They're also providing you the names of their small business specialists. And that can be very helpful because this is the person, again, who can help you understand the agency and how they buy and get you in contact with the right people within that agency. They've also posted their communications plan. And this really is a way of saying that they have a commitment to communicating with vendors and how they're going to get the information out to you. Okay, so now we've talked a lot about how to find an agency. And that's really all we've done, how to find the agency. What are you going to do with that information once you have it? The idea here is to make connections with the agency, get to know them, build those business relationships. And the way you do that is primarily the way you build other relationships. You listen to them. You go where they go. Do your homework, study their website, ask questions. Be professional in your approach. Remember that relationships develop over time and that relationships are not static. So you need to keep in touch and follow up with people to maintain relationships. Another thing with federal agencies is that the people in a particular job change over time. People retire, they change jobs. So if you have developed some rapport with someone and you can ask them questions easily, you might want to follow them where they go, but you also want to meet the new person and establish some rapport with them. Looks like I need to take my driver's test again. Okay, we're talking first about getting to know the agencies. So there's some things that I call listening posts, places where you can hear what the agency needs and what they're thinking. That would include conferences, webinars, podcasts, and professional organization meetings. So we have something here in August that we call ICBS Show. That is a good place to meet people. Webinars, ours and other people's webinars are good places to hear from agencies and learn more about what they expect. Podcasts are great if you're a podcast person. Frequently you can listen to those while you're driving your car or mowing your lawn. So those are real convenient. And then professional organization meetings. And here I'm thinking of things like for construction and architect engineer companies, the Society of American Military Engineers holds monthly meetings where they discuss things that are relevant to their world. AFCEA for electronics and communications folks. National Contract Management Association meetings for anyone that's in federal contracting. These are just places to meet people and to listen to their concerns. If they bring in a speaker for the month, it's a speaker who's going to talk about something relevant to them. And this will help you better understand your customer. Go where they go. If they are holding a trade fair or any type of vendor outreach event, go. When groups get together to have matchmaker events, see who's going. If your customer is there, you may want to be there. And go prepared. Take your capability statement with you. You can follow them on social media. And again, those professional organizations tend to publish monthly or quarterly magazines or journals, and seeing what they read there can be helpful. It may even be helpful to see who advertises in those. Attend meetings when you can. So what you want to do when you're building these relationships is do your homework, visit the agency's website, subscribe to their newsletters if they have them available. Develop targeted capability statements so that you're explaining what your company offers that serves their needs. Do contact the small business office. Ask for their assistance in finding the right people to talk to within their agency. Do respond to requests for information and sources sought. That helps the agency when they are trying to make decisions about whether they can set something aside for small business or not. And review solicitations carefully. Know what you're getting into. Ask questions, communicate clearly, and if you get the award, continue to communicate clearly should any problems or issues, questions arise. Getting to know agencies and maintaining those relationships. You have to understand the roles of the agency staff. Small business professionals advocate for small business, but they cannot advocate for a specific small business. They advocate for small business in general. They try to make sure that the atmosphere is appropriate for small business, that the rules are being followed. Contracting officers have the authority to award a contract, and they have the authority to obligate the government to pay funds. They are not small business officers. Your end user is the organization or individual in the agency who is actually going to benefit from what you are selling them. Typically, the end user has a requirement and submits that requirement through the purchasing program there, the contracting office puts out the solicitation, takes in the bids, and makes the award. The small business office can help the contracting officers if they need help finding small businesses, and they can help you locate opportunities. You need to review solicitations carefully, and I say very carefully. Sometimes you need to review every word, but you really want to look at not only the statement of work. That's what people tend to focus on, and that's important because you need to be able to do that work. But also look at the provisions and clauses and make sure that you understand them. For example, I don't want to hear that anybody had a government officer walk into their building and see that they were using Huawei telephones. You need to follow all the requirements, even the ones that are in the clauses incorporated by reference. Then you need to perform the contracts well. Some contracts go off without a hitch. You get the contract, you deliver the product, or you perform the service, you turn in your invoices, you get paid, and life is wonderful. They close out the contract file, and you get attaboys. Sometimes that is not the case. Sometimes there are problems, and problems can happen because, oh, let's see, you get ready to perform a contract, and you're depending on a subcontractor whose staff is not available 100% due to a COVID epidemic. What do you do? Well, you don't remain silent and hope it gets better. You don't remain silent and hope the government doesn't figure it out. You get with the contracting officer. And actually, when we say government in this area, we are talking about the contracting officer. Communicate with the contracting officer. Explain what the problem is, what impact it's going to have on contract performance, and what you are doing to mitigate any problem that it creates for them. Explain what you're doing to try to stay on track or get back on track, and keep those communications open. They will be far more able to work with you if they know the full situation. So, one more time, we want to use the online databases to get information about who is buying the products and services we sell. We want to review those agencies' websites. We want to make connections with the people in those agencies. To a large extent, that's going to be through the small business office. We want to be patient and kind through the process, understanding that everyone who works for the government in a small business role or a contracting role has more work to do probably than they have time to do it. And they have lots and lots of small businesses who need help. They're trying to help. Sometimes we have to rephrase a question. Sometimes we have to wait a couple of weeks for an answer. But we just need to be patient through that. But we also need to be persistent. If you don't get answers, return to the question in a polite manner until you do get an answer. Anything anyone wants to discuss? I'm going to I don't see any hands up, so we will move on. This is a list of our upcoming webinars. The first 3 will be at 9 a.m., like this one was. If you want more information, you can click into the registration link and read the descriptions there, or you can call the TGIP Tech office and talk with us. On June 15th, we're going to talk about selling products to the federal government. What we're going to do there is focus on the rules that specifically apply to products as opposed to services. On June 29th, we're going to talk about micro purchases and any reverse auctions that I can still find that are still viable. On July 12th, we're going to talk about creating ad hoc reports in SAM. And this can be a very useful tool. It can look a little intimidating when you first look at it, but once you learn how to use that tool, I think you're going to love it. August 10th, we'll talk about selling services to Uncle Sam, focusing there on the difference in services as opposed to products. And on October 12th, we're going to take a look at some common problems in federal contracting. And this is just based on our experience with small businesses in the past and things that they have encountered, and hopefully how to mitigate damage if you wind up with a problem, and more importantly, how to avoid the problem from the get-go. So that's all I have for today. And if we have no questions, I will thank you for being with me today and look forward to seeing you again soon.